Now, hey Brian,
Hey, MK, how's it going?
going great. So I want to introduce our listeners to Mr. Brian. Brian is a Shin, and what that means is it's actually a Hebrew word that means fire mother. Is that about right?
Yeah, I believe that is correct. Fire mother, mother fire, something along those lines. Although I have spoke with people that speak Hebrew, and they said that they're not positive that's correct. But from what I've heard, that's the interpretation.
Well, it sounds cool when we say it, so we're gonna go
Yeah.
with that. But more importantly, what it means to us is that you are actually the leader of a conclave. And for those listeners who are not familiar with what a conclave is, it's basically a collection of fire dancers or fire performers that open Burn Night at Burning Man and other burns as well, but it's a little more structured at Burning Man where everything's well choreographed, people prepare for months. Quite often there's costumes, and you show up at Burn Night with your crew. There's also a selection process that goes on before that where only certain crews are chosen, and those that have the honor perform just before the man burns. So that's really exciting, and I'm going to talk to Brian today about being the leader of all that, which is quite a huge deal, wouldn't you say, Brian?
Yeah, I was really excited to be a part of it. I'm not even really positive exactly how it happened. Sonny Valencia was our shin last year, and he did a fantastic job. We were a first year fire conclave, and he'd asked for someone to carry on the literal and figurative torch, and so I said I'd be willing to do it, and I was very happy to be a part of it.
That's awesome. That's great. I'm really excited that you got to do it this year. And for those of you who don't know, I was actually in Brian's conclave last year as well. This is the Empire Fiery Conclave of New York. We also had some members from Jersey. And it was a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of us. And I'm really proud of not being there this year, but so that our conclave and our name made it into conclave again. So that's really exciting. But this is all
Well,
about.
I'm really excited to be speaking to you about it in particular because you were such a huge part of it last year, and it's kind of a good opportunity for us to catch up as well as kind of fill you in on Burning Man in 2014. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And I miss you guys a lot. And seeing all the performance videos and all the rehearsals and stuff like that really, really made me homesick, both for New York and for Burning Man. So I'm glad to have you on. I'm really happy you're here. Okay, so I'm going to shoot the first question at you if you're ready.
Sure.
Cool. So let's start with the basics. When did you first start spinning fire and how?
Started spinning fire in let's see, it was January of 2013. So I've been spinning fire for just over a year now. Um, I remember the first time I saw someone spinning fire, it was at the regional PEX festival. I think that was in Delaware, and I remember first being mesmerized by the person next to our camp who was hooping all day, and I'd never really seen any flow arts, or if I had, it had just kind of been in passing. And then later that evening, they'd had a conclave, and I got to see that same person do exactly what she was doing with an unlit hoop, except on fire. And that was in July of 2013, and so I decided by January of 2014 I was going to learn how to hoop first of all, and then start fire hooping, and so that's what I did, and that's how I got into fire. I really still haven't explored many of the other flow props as much, although I have great respect for them, but I think that that's something that maybe 2015 holds in store for me.
Nice. Well, there's a lot to be said about being committed to that one prop too, and just really mastering it. But also,
It'll. I'm definitely not there, but but I think it also limits in a way. So I'm excited to start playing around with poi and staffs and see how the hoop skills translate.
nice. I'm excited to see you playing with all those props as well. And I had no idea until now that you were actually, I guess your experience with fire was so compressed. Because if you started in January of 2013, that's actually shortly before we started practicing for Conclave.
Yeah, well, I trying to remember exactly when we started last year, but I know this year we started getting everything together in February of 2014, and I remember showing up to my first free ignition in New York, and
Free ignition is our spin jam for anybody that doesn't know.
yeah, and I'd previously met Sonny Valencia, who was the Shin last year, and I didn't know that he was going to be the Shin or that they were having a conclave. And I was convinced by actually Natalie McFancy, who was at that free ignition. Pardon, that's my dog. I was
That's
convinced
okay.
to come out for Fire Conclave that year, and so I've probably been spinning for about less than 3 months when I started. Excuse me, fire hooping for less than 3 months when I joined the conclave.
That's awesome. And one really important thing that I want people to take away from that, people that want to go to Burning Man and people that want to perform at Burning Man, you could perform however way you want, but this is a really structured way to have hundreds of people see you as you're performing in front of the man before he's about to burn. You don't really need a lot of experience for that. You obviously have to practice a lot, you have to put a ton of work in, but you don't need a huge repertoire of years and years and years of spinning fire. There were actually a lot of people in our conclave that were fairly new to the scene and fairly new to the whole spinning fire around your body thing. So there you go. Um, okay,
That
so
happened again this year. I think I think one of the coolest parts about our conclave is the number of new members we have every year. Um, New York is such a large city that we kind of just put the word out there that we're doing a conclave and see who joins and who sticks and who stays. And a lot of our most committed members were people that had no experience spinning fire until Fire Conclave. So it was a very similar experience to last year.
that's awesome. That's really exciting. So there you go, guys. There's no excuses. Join a conclave. Find one in your area. I'll try and post some links and some information for how to find people who spin fire in your area, or how to organize a conclave yourself if there isn't something already. Okay, so do it. All right. Now, was that your first year on the playa? Obviously, that was like last year, 2013.
Yeah, 2013 was my first year on Playa and my first year in a fire conclave. So I went into it really having no idea what to expect on either front. Um, but it was a wonderful surprise. I did have high expectations, and to be honest, they were totally met. Just I can speak at length both about my experience on Playa as well as my experience with Fire Conclave.
That's awesome, and I might have you do that in a minute. I just wanted to start with first things first. Why did you want to join the conclave? I know you said that Natalie McFancy, who was our choreographer and who's a very talented dancer, she talked you into it, but there must have been some personal reasons too. What made you say, well, I'm ready to really commit myself to this endeavor, to practice for hours, to drive out to the city, and to spend 2 months packing and paying all this stuff to actually be in the middle of the desert for a week? What made you commit to that?
Yeah, definitely. So Natalie had told me about it, but there were a million reasons that I took her up on the opportunity. First was I was a new fire performer. I really wanted to improve. I wanted to meet new people. I had my friends in the Burning Man scene within New York City, but I've always been so intrigued by fire performers, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to meet a number of fire performers within New York City, improve the skills that I'd just started learning, and just have an amazing time. Who doesn't want to meet a bunch of new people and spin fire with them every week? It was fantastic, and I'm so glad I did it.
I'll bet. That's amazing, and it's a lot of work to be in concert. So But obviously, from Brian's account and from the account of probably if you know anybody that's ever been in Conclave, it's totally, totally worth it. Um, so I'm curious, was that your first time performing? I know you hadn't been spinning hoop much before, but some people had a background in maybe, Broadway dancing or something along those lines. Did you have anything like that, or was that your first performance?
No, that was my first performance. If we're going to be perfectly honest, my parents forced me into doing 1 year of Irish dancing when I was a child, which
River dance?
which left me scarred. But I'm going to be honest in this interview. That was my first performance, and it did not last very long. But it was my first time performing with enthusiasm, and I loved it.
So tell me a little bit more about it. I know you loving it obviously says a lot, but can you sort of go into more detail about what the experience was like? What was your favorite part? What was your favorite feeling about it?
Are we talking about 2013 or 2014?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, which was your favorite, first of all? You
It's.
know
I
what?
feel like
I'm not even
that's
going to
like
put you
picking
on
up
the
things like
spot.
a child.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but instead I'm going to
Okay.
ask you to describe both. What was your favorite part of 2013, and what was your favorite part of performing in Conclave this year in 2014?
Okay. 2013, I think just the utter shock of seeing all these people that I'd become great friends with in New York, seeing them in such a distinct location as the Playa. It's one thing when you bump into everyone on a weekly basis in New York and get used to seeing them, but then you encounter all of your friends out there on Playa in their burner attire and really totally unconstrained by city laws in New York. You can spin fire wherever you want on Playa, and so it really felt like it was a home for us. And I absolutely loved spinning fire with the other Conclave members during the week in 2013. That was really special and fantastic. And then as we approached the man burn, there was so much anticipation because all of this was new to me. Seeing the man burn, performing in front of such a large crowd, I'm sure that I had an incredible adrenaline dump, but I think the best part for me was just seeing the friends that I'd made in Conclave out on Playa, really truly in their element. And that was 2013. I think in 2014, my highlight had to have been walking to the man because we met at Sonny's camp this year, as we did last year, and we had a group of about 45 people, which is quite a large conclave number. The
Wow.
maximum number you can have in a conclave is 50 people. And I just remember walking out in front and looking behind me and seeing this entire line of people following with their fire props and getting high fives and hugs from people that were on their way to watch the man burn themselves. And I was kind of separated from the group, so it was a bit of a quiet moment where I got to look back and see everyone, and that was really special for me.
That's awesome. And you actually made me remember that walk last year too. And I realized, that was one of my favorite parts too. And some of the photos, our photographer Jared took some amazing photos of us performing and of us on the playa. And some of my favorites were of that walk. I remember he also stood at a distance and kind of just absorbed it, observed us and took those photos. And they're really amazing with the sun setting and everybody sort of, knowing where we're about to go and what we're about to do. It was just really, I don't know, extremely fulfilling. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
One of the interesting parts this year was how the weather was pretty clear until right about when we got to our spot, and then a near whiteout occurred where we couldn't see the man from our position within inside the circle, which is only, I think, 200 feet or 250 feet or so from the perimeter of the man. And so it was very strange and surreal walking out with such a large group, and then all of a sudden getting ambushed with a dust storm as soon as you take your place. It's only at Burning Man.
So how did you guys deal with that? Did you just kind of wait for it to pass by? Was anything delayed?
Nothing was delayed, although the winds kept up at a high level during the performance too. We definitely had some difficulty lighting our wicks because the wind was going at such a strong speed. But I think that maybe all the art cars gathered around the man maybe blocked some of the dust that might have blown up into our performance area, and so other than lighting the wicks, everything went very smoothly.
That's great. There are no guarantees of Burning Man, by the way, which kind of makes it a very extreme and a very fun environment to light your props in, always. So besides just the different moments that you remember, what's the main part about having, or what's the main difference between having been a part of Conclave last year as a performer and being the Shin and sort of hurting everybody this year?
I think a lot of it has to do with personal investment. So last year I was very invested in the Fire Conclave. I went to every practice whenever I was in town. It really mattered to me, but the dramatic increase in how much it mattered to me when I took on the role of Shin really can't be overstated. During the entire process, I was really thinking a lot about how my actions and the decisions that we made during this process would impact the chances of everyone that's put so much time and effort into getting into the Fire Conclave, how that would impact their chances. And so there was definitely a weight on my chest for the months leading up to when we found out whether or not we were going to get in. Like I said, we started this process way back in February, and I believe that we found out we were getting in July. So there's a lot of uncertainty during that time period. It's about 5 months where you're really kind of cobbling things together, getting to know the new personalities within the conclave. The pieces start to form, and in the beginning, there are definitely some moments of panic, but as we got closer and closer to the date, I started to feel the pressure relieve little by little, and then physically felt a weight come off my chest when we got the notice that we were approved for the Fire Conclave in 2014.
I'm sure it was a little bit more than just a weight being lifted off. I know how I felt when we got that notice last year.
I was just so happy, and I knew how much that everyone in the conclave had dedicated themselves, and so I just took it very personally. I really wanted it to pay off, and I was so happy for everyone that it did.
I was really happy for you guys too. I was extremely proud of you, as I am of everybody that makes it into Conclave, and even those that don't, because they still put the work in. They still take time and months to practice and to get their choreography together, and it's really a big project. It's a huge endeavor. And the truth is that everybody's kind of a rock star that does it, whether they get chosen or not. And I'm sure it's very difficult for the committee that makes that choice, the Fire Council or the Conclave Council, to actually pick the finalists. So, by the way, big ups to them, the Fire Council. Without them, it couldn't happen. So,
definitely, and they were fantastic throughout the entire process too. They would, when we'd ask, they'd give us tips and regarding our choreography or the video, and they were very helpful to me, especially as a first-time Shin, through the entire process.
Yeah, they really take time out of their day to help everybody that's asking questions, and they must have hundreds of people asking them questions. So, is there anything else that you want to talk about regarding your experience? I'm sure there's just volumes and volumes of stuff.
Yeah, well, this year was just really special to me. The man was huge. He was 120 2 feet tall, and I believe when you count the arms raised, it over the head, it made it to 105 feet, which was the biggest man that they burned in the history of Burning Man. And so I remember going to the meetings leading up to the week, and they didn't seem exactly sure how the man was going to fall. So I remember checking prevailing wind directions and thinking, where our position was in relation to how it might fall with the way the base is set up. So there were many X factors through the entire process, but just to be able to be in that center of people with 60 or 70,000 people surrounding us in front of that massive man, it was so surreal and just incredible to experience it with some of the same people as last year, and then some of the new friends I've made. I really can't understate how great Conclave has been for developing friendships that I never knew I'd have.
And knowing that you brought those people to the playa, because without the Shin, nothing really comes together. It's a big responsibility, like you said, but it's also, I mean, obviously it has its rewards.
Yeah, and I definitely want to thank everyone that helped me this year, especially Sunny and Natalie and Barbara and Randy, everyone in the entire conclave. It was really a group effort. I kind of coordinated a lot of it, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one that did it all. This was a massive group effort, and so I really appreciate all the work that they put in.
Yeah, and I just want to add that your fire collective, it's really becomes like your family, because like you said, seeing everybody in the playa is sort of a way that you don't see them in everyday life, but you also know them in everyday life. You spend time with them. You put in blood, sweat, and tears for these people, and then you get to see them out there in their element, and you get to know people on a level that you know very few people in your life. So yeah, I still consider Empire Fire Conclave one of my families, one of my many families in my life, and I still hold everybody very, very dear to my heart.
You're definitely family, MK. We love you.
Oh, I love you too. Miss you.
Aw.
All right, and on that sad note, I'm going to throw out my final question. Are you ready for it?
Sure.
Okay, so speaking of community and family, if our community was a society, and I'm talking about fire spinners as a whole, and we each had our job, what would your job be called in 1 or 2 words, and describe your responsibilities?
I'd say just this year, and this may not have been my position last year or the year before, or excuse me, or next year, but I'd say facilitator within this group, because everyone had so many great ideas within Empire Fire Collective. In New York, there are so many talented fire spinners that have great ideas for choreography or costumes, things like that, and my role this year, a lot of it was just to see where that would fit in and how that would work with our overall objective, which was a cohesive performance. And so I try to encourage people to be creative and encourage friendships to build and for people to meet outside of practice. So possibly facilitator.
Well, you obviously did it right. If you didn't, then you guys would not have made it. Well, I'm sure some of you would have still made it to the playa, but not as a conclave, not as part of the conclave.
Yeah, again, I had so much great help and so much incredible talent through the entire process. It was definitely a bit of stress, but it was so incredible, and it all paid off in dividends. When we got to the playa. So I'm looking forward to developing these friendships that I've made again in the future. So so profoundly gratified by everyone's efforts, honestly.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely approve your title of facilitator. I think you did. I think you do it right. Definitely sounds like you did. So,
Thank you.
with that said, I'm going to bid you adieu. I want to give you a big thank you for coming on the Flow Chat. It has been amazing to talk to you. I miss you a lot, and I'm very proud of you and what you've done on the playa. And I'm very happy you guys made it again, and I strongly encourage everybody to do their very best to make it to Burning Man as part of the conclave. You deserve it, and you owe it to yourselves. All right,
Well,
Brian, I'll see you later.
thank you. Come to New York. We miss you a lot.
I want to. I'm thinking about just coming up there for a couple of months to rehearse with you guys, so we could all go to the play again next year.
Please do it and give me warning ahead of time. I don't want to hear you came up here and I didn't get to see you. So,
Oh no, I definitely will. All right, Brian. We'll see you later.
bye bye.